Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is No Limits Nick, and welcome back to another episode of the Elitist Gaming Podcast. This week's topic is going to be something that you probably may have heard of, but never have delved too deeply into, and that is the world of streaming and the world of esports. This week with me, I am joined by two of the more popular streamers here at the University of Arizona. My first guest is Mr. Heroics.
It's not heroics. We've been over this.
Heroicos.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Not welcome. and my second returning guest is the man, the myth, the legend himself, NaderZ.
Why is he the man, the myth, the legend? I'm just this guy.
Because he has peaked in Apex. All right. he has peaked.
Because I have peaked in Apex.
It's all downhill from here.
He's just better than me. My bad.
But gentlemen, you know why I've brought you here, but why don't you tell the audience what specializes you guys in both esports and streaming?
All right. Well, streaming wise, I'm fairly new to streaming. I think as you also are, Nick. I very nearly hit my affiliate status on Twitch, which is worth 50 followers and a consistent certain number of viewers. I think it's like 3. Yeah, it's nothing crazy, but it's a good start. And I stream fairly regularly. And then with esports, I have been watching esports for quite some time, and more recently this year, I have participated as being a coach on the University of Arizona Overwatch team.
Nice.
So I coached the esports team here for that.
Awesome. It's good to have a coach's perspective here. What about you, NaderZ?
For me, I have been testing with streaming since August, and officially I would say in January when I got back from winter break, I started streaming regularly, and even now after our spring break more regularly. I am a member of our Apex team at the university, and these tournaments have to be streamed because currently the only way to really run these is through kill races. So I also have a lot of experience around streaming because I've been a viewer of streaming since the Justin TV days. I used to actually watch StarCraft 2 videos, or StarCraft 2 streamers at the time. I would just see whoever was playing because basically the people streaming were really high level, and it was a great way to learn. So I've seen streaming evolve from that to when League of Legends hit its peak and up until now.
Definitely sounds like a long time lurker of the streaming industry back when it was in its infancy.
Oh yes.
It's really exploded more recently.
Oh yeah, because with the explosion of esports, a lot of the big name players tend to stream when they're not competing on their teams.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can definitely get like that more personal feel.
I would say, in fact, the vast majority of competitive esports players, when they're not busy with their team, will stream.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's very true. I want to also say that one thing that I think that was the biggest boom of streaming that I noticed was Amazon buying Twitch. Because I'm a business student, so I'm all up over all this business stuff.
Oh yeah.
But once that happened, and Amazon was like, "Hey, well, with a Twitch Prime, we might as well link Amazon Prime to it." That alone has given Twitch people careers, because not everyone watches Twitch, but almost everyone has Amazon Prime, and almost everyone has children that has these accounts or is young enough, and everyone's getting into gaming. And as the industry is growing, there's more viewership, and everyone has this accessibility to Twitch Prime subs, which actually seriously gives so many people the ability to have streaming as a career nowadays. I think that whole blow up made it feasible before, and a lot of the people that were big now got lucky, because back in the days, when you had all these older streamers, people were streaming and they would carry 300 viewers consistently, but then they stopped. And if they had continued up until now and just kept that base and grew their viewership as it became more popular, they'd be so successful. But I think it was just a huge timing thing that really helped jumpstart a lot of people's careers. So I definitely think I have to thank Amazon. Amazon definitely helped Twitch streamers in general so much.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
Sure.
Definitely. I remember when it first launched, and they still do it today. It's like one of the more like memed on sellout points. Is like you ask your audience members like, "Hey, do you have Amazon Prime?"
Hey, did you guys know that with Twitch Prime, you get one free monthly subscription to your favorite Twitch streamer?
And that means that you should go to Twitch TV/No Limits Nick
Heroicos.
and go and give him a sub.
Yeah, that's the gist of the meme.
That's the gist of the meme. Yes, you should absolutely do it. By the way.
So let's start with like this. When was the first time that you guys started watching streams? Because for me, I couldn't give it an exact date, but I think it was like my freshman, sophomore year of high school when I started playing StarCraft 2. That's when I started getting the stream.
I would say probably my junior year of high school is when I started like first getting into it. I didn't like watch them significantly until like probably middle way through my senior year. And I'm a freshman in college right now, so that's only like a year or 2 years ago.
I think for me, it's definitely my senior year of high school. I'm a senior in college now. We're going back to when Destiny 1 first came out. That's kind of actually no, I take it back. My first ever stream was probably 2 years or around the same time actually. My first ever stream was Brown Man or aka Ray from Rooster Teeth, and I saw a tweet from him one day. He was playing Outlast. That was my first ever stream. And then fast forward to Destiny 1 coming out. That's when I really started watching streaming and understanding, what it's like to be a full-time streamer.
And if you have a good following, full-time streaming is absolutely an incredibly lucrative career.
It is, and it's very interesting because again, like I'm me being a business student, I have to put the business inside on it. You no longer are just an entertainer. You become a brand at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at Ninja, you look at Shroud, you look at Tim the Tatman, like all these guys, Dr. Lupo, they're a brand. And people will sponsor brands and push brands.
Yeah.
Like sponsoring, like that's a whole nother level. Like basically like the marketing for this becomes crazy because people like Shroud has Madrina's Coffee as I think, I don't know, is it his business or whatever? But just sponsoring them so much, like I think it's his own business.
I think so, yeah.
I'm honestly not sure. I need to learn more about it. But sponsoring things like that, like bring life into a product because you can give anything to Shroud. Give Shroud like anything. Give Shroud his own Mountain Dew, just like how Ninja has his own Red Bull, and you advertise it. And all of a sudden, Shroud is going to be worth more.
Oh, yeah.
Not only is he going to bring in sales, but he himself is going to be worth more. He will get paid like $100,000 for a sponsorship, I bet, eventually. Like, who is it? Ninja was paid $1 million to play Apex during its launch week.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Some crazy amount like that. I can only imagine how much did Shroud and all these other streamers get paid. Because all these people were playing at the same time. It brought such a huge following just from Twitch. And that was a beautiful marketing move. But just imagine being that streamer, just like, oh, yeah, I'm getting offered $1 million just so I play a game for a week. Yes.
Well, the thing is, like, these guys are like,
I'm here for.
These guys are like all huge celebrities. But what comes nowadays when you're playing like FPS games, if you're not so much going for like an entertainer, but like a brand, is you have like a level of skill on you to be like these high level streamers. I was following Ninja way before Fortnite came out, like back when he was doing his Halo 5 days, when he was on team, what was
Final
it, Luminosity?
That was Final Boss. It must have been Final Boss.
Yeah, it was like Team Luminosity.
No, it was Final Boss.
Final Boss?
Yeah. Didn't he make it onto Final Boss finally?
No, like he
made it onto Final Boss. I know that. He made it onto Final Boss before he stopped playing Halo.
Probably. I missed the end of his Halo career. The last I saw of him, he was like with Lunchbox and his other twin brother.
I stopped watching Halo Esports after a while.
But
I was out of the loop of it.
This that you just reminded me of something. This also I think is important. What was your first taste of esports? For me, it is Halo 2. This was back in probably 2006. I want to say 2006. It was an MLG event, and it was televised and put on TV. And I would wake up on Saturdays because I would play soccer. I was in a soccer league, and I remember for like a 3-week, 4-week, or no, it was a 3-week span. Every Saturday, I would come home and I would watch this tournament. And I saw it was the teams. I think it was Carbon, Final Boss, and 2 other names I can't really remember, but like that was my first taste into esports, and I think that's what really pulled me into video games at that moment. When I saw people there competing on stage for money, that really pulled my attention and sucked me into it. And then ever since, I've always been a fan of competitive games. That's why I love playing competitive games mostly. And I mean, I hopped around from Halo to StarCraft. I played a lot of Call of Duty, which I'd say it's a competitive game now. But even still, like, I've just been all around competitive games, Counter-Strike Source, Counter-Strike Go. Like, it's all because of me watching that one tournament of Halo back in 2006, I think. And that was my first real taste of like watching esports. So I want to know, what about you two? What was your first taste of esports? Like, what was the first thing that you saw?
I got a very unique one. And you'll
Oh boy.
So it's actually something I'm doing right now in Destiny, but it stems all the way back to World of Warcraft. And that was the world first race, correct. So
yes.
I remember this was over Christmas, and I'm on my tablet at the time, and I'm on YouTube, and all of a sudden I see this video saying world's first Lich King 10-man, I believe, from Blood Legion. It's a US guild. And I'm like, what the heck? People have beaten the Lich King, and they're saying world's first? And to me, what sold me on it was just the nerd screams from them. Like, just that intense release of accomplishment when you've...
Like we did it!
Yeah. And
that sort of thing.
It was like this, like the intense nerd screams of like pounding your head against a boss and just like being the best in the world. And then a few weeks later, another guild, a Finnish guild named Paragon, came out and beat the Lich King 25-man heroic, which is the hardest difficulty at the time. And from then on, I was a huge Paragon fanboy. And so whenever like the huge like Method and Paragon races would commence, I was always Team Paragon.
I'm kind of a bit of a Redeem Clan fanboy for the same reason after watching their Leviathan speedruns.
Oh yeah, my Destiny clan is my dad is Bungie, those guys, because I followed them that team for a long time.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But to the branding point that you made earlier, like even these WoW guilds are now a brand. Method has evolved into a brand. They have several esports teams that span across several different games, and this is a team that started from a WoW guild when the game first came out in 2004. So that's a huge evolution in terms of where they started to where they are now. Their co-founder, like their GM, the person who made the guild and probably founded the brand Method in general, still plays WoW on a hardcore level. What are we? 15 years later since the game first released. And yeah, I see him on these like esport poker games destroying people.
Yeah. So my first experience with esports is actually much more recent. I knew it was a thing, but I had never like really had the chance to play many games that were like competitive. It was actually when Overwatch first came out and got started, and they announced the first season of I believe it was Apex is what they called it. The Overwatch Apex series, which is like the first big tournament series that happened, where all of the big teams like Optic Gaming, the big chains that everyone knows, all came, Envious, all came and did a big tournament together. And that was my first taste of it, and I had gotten Overwatch as it came out. I loved the game. It was like my favorite. And so I was like, this is crazy. I can go watch people who are insanely good at this game, watch them do stuff, and then try and do it myself, which like that part of like sort of connection to the game, it's like I had never really played many games. So the connection to like knowing the game and having played the game was like kind of the big difference for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, I think it can also be like a teaching tool for like games you've already played. Because for me, when I started getting to the Halo esports and fell in love with it, it kind of teaches you like, oh wow, these are like little tips and tricks that could help me in the same situation that they are doing.
And that's actually one of the biggest things you'll find on streams now is everyone's always like, they'll go to the really good players and be like, hey, you got a quick tip for me? Like, how do I do this better? How do I get better? You'll see it a lot.
Oh yeah, and especially with big streamers. I mean, they get bombarded with that all the time. Like look at
Yeah.
Mendo Kusai
Oh my gosh, yes.
for Apex. He gets so much attention just on tips and tricks. People are just like, how do you get, especially because he got the world record. When you get to
Yeah.
be called a world record holder, you instantly just have so much more attention on you. Just that alone is enough publicity to make you, I guess, jump up. Like
Absolutely.
seriously, like a lot of people, I mean, what was it? Even if you look at Dizzy had an average of under 40 viewers before he started playing Apex.
Mendo is actually a former Overwatch professional.
Oh yeah, he's a former Overwatch pro, but I mean Dizzy was a Counter-Strike semi-pro, but even still, like Dizzy had nobody watching him. And then a month later, he's making a living. Like this is his career now. Like he can make a living out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely an industry now. I call it the gold mine of the digital age.
I think it is. You know why? Because esports is only going to grow, especially as the market grows. Like everyone under the age of 18 has been exposed to video games now. Like everyone.
Absolutely.
Anyone who lives in the US, I would say, they're exposed to video games. Whether it's console or PC, they're exposed to it, especially with the rise of Fortnite. But everyone's exposed to it.
Smartphones.
Everyone is playing it because everyone's playing. Like everyone always goes with what the crowd does. It's going to be not just popular, it is going to be the main thing. I think it is going to overshadow sports. As unfortunate as that sounds, like I love sports, but I think that esports is going to be just as big.
Oh yeah.
But it just needs its time. Because if you look
at one thing I'd actually like to point out about the relationship. So yes, I agree with you because esports is going to be massive, but if outside of the realm of, if you compare esports to streaming, actually, you'll find that there's a lot of people who, in their respective games, either went pro, wanted to go pro, are trying to go pro, or various things for their game for esports competitively. But it turns out that their stream is actually far more like lucrative. They make far more money streaming.
Oh yeah.
And absolutely.
For example, Kefri from Overwatch. He tried to go play pro, and then he got put in a weird situation, and it was far more profitable for him to just play the game on stream. Now he doesn't really play Overwatch anymore. He plays Apex all the time.
Mm-hmm. But also, I would actually want to touch on that as well. One thing very interesting with all of this is a lot of the people that do end up going to streaming, like I think that a lot of streamers will all agree, especially ex-professionals, that streaming is definitely better in every way when it comes to their time because they're able to just enjoy themselves, relax, play, have fun, all of that.
Yeah.
And the people who've gone through the grind say that it just eventually gets to a point where you don't like the game anymore. And again, like some streamers, as we have seen, they have gotten burnt out from playing games too much, and it happens. But being in a competitive game where it's your job to be one of the best players at this game and to win and win and win and win, you have to put in 8 to 12 hours every day. Not just 8 hours like a normal job. Like streaming, you can do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You can have a living with it, make like $20K a month. Like seriously, people do that.
Yeah,
but
it's ridiculous.
With competitive gaming, you don't really get a break. If you see these competitive gamers, a lot of people like will not be eating for most of the day, and they'll have like one meal and then that's it, and then they just keep playing because they have to spend all their time just getting better and better and better and just like literally improving on micro skills in order to have a little bit more of an edge. And it really burns people out.
That's one of the worries with the Overwatch community right now, Overwatch esports, is that it's not there's like a problem surfacing where people are working so hard that they're getting burnt out, like players of the game, because they're just spending so much time grinding it, and they're actually getting like wrist injuries and that sort of thing too. Physical injuries because of how much time they're spending playing the game.
There was a short documentary CBS did, and they followed one of the young Overwatch
I believe it was
players.
Space.
I want to say it was Space 2. Like he was
They followed Space on the LA Valiant. Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. Yep, they followed him, and they brought up the injuries that you were talking about.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
thing
there's
about
actually a lot of people looking into it more recently too.
oh yeah, absolutely. Like
That sort
don't
of
be
thing.
surprised if like you hear about a team and all of a sudden they have like a team psychiatrist or something.
That's actually
Oh,
like
yeah.
mandatory for Overwatch teams. They have to have
Oh,
a
wow.
psychologist.
That is crazy. I didn't even know that. I know
Yeah.
that a lot of teams have done it. Like if you look at I love using this example because I'm a huge CS fan, but look at Astralis.
Oh, God.
Astralis has their own psychologist, they have their own nutritionist, they have their own fitness person, they've
Oh,
got their
yeah.
personal trainer for the team. And then on top of it, this is my favorite part about Astralis, and I think this is why I think it's one of the best organizations. They have their prime minister always tweeting and supporting the Astralis team.
They're Swedish, right?
No, not Swedish. They're
Finnish, I want to say.
no, not Finnish, not
Danish?
Finnish. I think they're from they're Danish. Yeah, they're Danish. Norway? No. Wait, Norway or Denmark?
I feel like it's
Let me
Denmark.
see the flag.
well,
Let me just check this real quick.
All the lights are turned off in my room.
Yeah, Danish.
Uncomfortable.
They're Danish.
they're Danish.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, even still, like they have so much support behind them that it's crazy. Like they're actually, I mean,
They're
so
basically
many-
like a national icon.
it's they are.
Essentially.
And like there's no other esports team that's like that in any country. No one's like a national icon, I would say, on that sort of level.
Oh,
where
no.
they have like government pushing them up on a pedestal, like, hey, look at our team, we're so great, we're amazing. That's crazy.
I think like any team in America would kill
I-
to have
I
that kind of attention.
I think that's also going to help esports as well, at least on an international level.
Oh,
Other countries
absolutely.
are going to see something like that. They're going to realize the money that's in it. I feel like it's only just now tipped over $1 billion as an industry. Look at sports. How much money is in sports as an industry in the world? So much money. I don't even think there's an answer to that. We don't even know because there's just so much in it. Every sport, cricket, baseball, football, rugby, basketball, everything. There's just so many sports, and with esports, how big it's going to grow, it's going to be massive. And we've only just started. And like, think of it like this: we're only really popular amongst, I'd say, like a young age, like maybe 12 to at max like 35-year-olds. I would say that's like the esport age where everyone's interested in it. But sports
I would
themselves
agree,
have
yes.
people from age 2 till like literally 110-year-olds. Like it's everyone. Everyone basically.
That's why I think as time goes on, it's just going to keep getting more popular.
Exactly,
for the time
and
being,
this
just
is the
because of
time
age.
to just stick with it. You don't have to try extra hard. I think you just have to be consistent and stick with it. Because if you were to do, let's say, just do content once a week consistently, but you do it for the next 5 years, look where you get in 5 years compared to now. You may not be the biggest streamer, you may not be able to make it into a full career yet, but you will have a following. And then if there's more money getting pumped into this, there's going to be more money being spent around and more money supporting people. And then maybe even then, that's when you'd be able to get your big break. But you just have to be consistent. You have to have more people following you and get some attention from something that you do or what content you put out.
Well, I didn't want to bring on.
Sports is growing. It is a growing industry, and this
Yeah.
is only the start.
Yeah, it's only a start, but there's also one thing I want to talk about back to the stress topic before we got into that tangent, was that there's something different about esports compared to other sports. Sure, you can go to a live game, like I can go to a baseball game, sit down like on the first base line and cheer or talk shit to whoever I see. With esports, I can do the same thing by going to a tournament, but then I can also do it to them while they're streaming. So there's a much more personal connection to these players and athletes than there is in any other sport. So
Yeah, for sure.
the stress of live streaming and like, let's say like you're playing Apex and like you mess up, your audience is going to notice, and depending on
They can pick up on it. They can pick up on it.
and depending on how your chat is and how it's run, you can either be like, it can either be brushed off easily, or you're going to be ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
And I can say this as a streamer, we may not say something, but we can definitely see what you're typing.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
yeah. We do. Contrary to popular belief, even when chat's going really fast, we still notice mostly everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like if you go into like a Shroud or Ninja's chat room, he may not answer every question that they have, even when sub only mode's on, but I guarantee you they see quite a bit of them. And let's be honest, when our favorite streamers like find a shitter and they just rip them a new one, it is probably some of the best content you'll find on the internet.
It's pretty great, yeah.
It's amazing. But anyway, tangent aside, there's actually one topic I want to bring up, and that is coaching, because in sports nowadays, like if you play any sport like football, basketball, or hell, even my sport, track and field, you might see a video or two of the opposite team and try to get an edge of it. Heroic, you say you're a coach.
Yes, I am an Overwatch coach.
So
also, I just want a quick shout out to my new follower that just followed me.
So
anyways, go ahead.
So as a coach, like, do you sit down with your team with like a VOD or something, or an actual live stream, and do you sit down with your team and go over like the little things they're doing, like this is something you can exploit on them?
Okay, so yes, actually, the way we run our team is we have a designated schedule every week, obviously, because we're all college students, so we're not like full-time doing this. But like we have, I believe it's Wednesday nights are nights where we all sit down and one of the coaches will pull up a VOD and we'll all basically go through it together. There's varying ways when that happens. One way is that a coach might stream the video and then everyone else can tune in and see it. There's a couple other services that we use that actually basically let everyone participate in viewing the VOD at the same time. Because most of the time we're all meeting online, we're not going to meet in person all the time. Obviously. We do, however, have times when we meet in person, we'll go to someone's house and we'll actually pull up a VOD there and we'll all go over VOD in person, which I think are the most helpful ones. And then after reviewing the VOD on Saturday and Sunday, we have scrims, and then we usually try to find one more scrim during the week sometime.
Okay. And scrims are like practice games against another team, right? Or you practice...
Yeah, same as in sports, regular sports. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
There's large communities of people where you just go and basically say, hey, we're a team. This is our current like team average ranking, and we're looking for someone else around the same rank or a little bit higher or a little bit lower to play against. And then other people will come and message you, and you'll get it all worked out. And then you make a custom game, and everyone goes and plays in there for the scrim.
Awesome. I believe I've seen several of those back in Halo 5. I would catch a player stream, and it would be like...
I actually usually stream our Overwatch scrims.
Yeah, that's definitely that's definitely a common thing you'll see amongst teams, that they'll stream their scrims on their personal pages, not a team affiliated page or anything.
Oh yeah, because it's also like the best way to honestly one of the best ways to get a recording of the game too.
Oh yeah,
because streaming is generally speaking less intensive than recording.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, that's actually a little known fact. It depends on your setup, really. But like everyone always assumes streaming is going to be incredibly computer intensive, but it's more internet intensive than computer intensive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I can kind of agree with that. Like your internet's definitely it's definitely a higher priority than say your PC, but that doesn't mean you can get like a cheap potato computer from Walmart and say I'm gonna stream.
Oh yeah, you need like a semi decent PC for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For recording or streaming, absolutely. But I'm saying that it's not like I've got a PC that can record, but I want to stream, but I can't because I just don't have a good enough PC. There's a good chance that you will. But anyway, that's besides the point. We're getting off topic again.
All right, so let me ask you this, Nader. Since you're a player in the first person shooter genre.
Yes, sir.
Rivalries. Do players just like in any other sport? Do players like develop like rivalries against one another or other teams? You could probably jump in on this, Heroicos.
I would say there's always going to be rivalries, but I think that with FPS games, it's a little bit different. I think the best rivalries will always come from 1v1 games, especially fighting games. That's where the real rivalries will be. But besides that, yes, I feel like it's the major organizations mostly just have rivalries with other major organizations. Like, I don't know, like, for instance, I know that our CS team, obviously we've got a rivalry with the Arizona State University Counter-Strike team, because obviously there are
schools themselves are rivalries.
They're scum devils.
So they're scum devils. There you go. Yeah, so I think that in general, there's going to be rivalries all across, but it's not going to be the same. Actually, no, it is going to be the same as most sports. Like, look at Barcelona and Real Madrid. Those two are huge rivals. They've been rivals for a long time, but they're both the top dogs. I feel like it might be like C9 and TSM or something like that will just be known to be rivals. And it doesn't matter what game that they're sponsoring. Their teams will always be rivals against each other because all these top organizations want to be on top. And it's a little bit different from sports because of the sports you have, okay, there's the best football teams and the best soccer teams, but you don't have a Barcelona football team as well as a baseball team for Barcelona. You don't. But Cloud9 has a Apex team. They've got League of Legends, Counter CSGO. They have probably Paladins. They probably have Hearthstone, and literally every game under the sun. That organization probably has every single game that can be an esport. Like, they have a team for it almost. So it's very different from sports because I think that it's going to be just rivalries between organizations as a whole, which will be very interesting to see. Because it's no longer like a loyalty to sport, to team. It's now going to be loyalty to organizations. Well, like, let's say I loved the Counter-Strike team for Counter-Strike, or the Cloud9 team for Counter-Strike, but I don't love the League of Legends team. So it becomes a conflict of interest to support Cloud9 CSGO team and where their League of Legends team where they're merged, but also not support their CSGO team. It becomes very weird.
I would say that followings themselves sometimes, like, people will follow the C9 like CSGO team, but they won't follow, like, they may only follow CSGO as an esport, so they may not even care about the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me personally, the only Overwatch is probably the only esport that I like seriously follow, and I know that pretty much all of the Overwatch League teams are actually owned by like big esports teams.
Yes.
So they're already well known, even though they have a different name.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would argue that actually you're pointing out that the differences between them, like regular sports and this, following wise, I would say that there's even like a massive difference because the following for the esports version is like it's much like we said earlier, it's much more personal it's less following the team and oftentimes you follow more people. And regarding the rivalries,
yes, okay, I genuinely think that's very true.
So that's what I was getting at, because does one star player who you follow for streaming take on another star player who's also a big streamer? Like, is it possible for like those two to become like heated rivals?
I have a really important thing to bring up, and I think that because you brought that up, that does make a lot of sense, and I highly agree with it. With esports, it's also much faster paced than sports in the sense of everything's happening not on a physically quicker level, but just the scene and how games evolve and who's on top and who's on bottom is so quick. With sports, you have to actually rest and recover and play games on a certain basis. You actually can't burn yourself up. But with these games, like, you can be playing day after day after day, tournament after tournament after tournament, like weekend after weekend, just nonstop. Just, you can keep going. And because of that, people will be switching teams faster because of how fast seasons go. Seasons happen 4 times in a year with video games. With sports, it's once a year. Most of the time, it's really just one season per year.
Overwatch is very different with that, actually. We are a once-a-year thing for Overwatch, Overwatch League. But it also is a very long-lasting thing. It's like, I think it's 180 days of Overwatch League.
Jeez.
See, that's a lot. And then at the same time, like, how would that incorporate into burnout with games that have 4 seasons, but they've got breaks in between? Would that maybe help with burnout? But it also changes the meta more. But then again, like with you saying this whole following of players over teams, I think that's so true. For instance, let's say I was a huge fan of what's his name, Tarek on Cloud9 for Counter-Strike Go. I really liked him, but he left the team and he's on Energy. And all of a sudden, I somewhat liked the roster before, but now I have like a love for that team as well, because I'm like, no, like the Tarek's on that team. I love that team again, even though I really like Tarek as a streamer. So then I feel like the same thing would happen. Like, let's say if Shroud was on Cloud9, I would like Cloud9, and then all of a sudden Shroud jumps to TSM's team, and then I'd be like, oh, hey, like, this TSM team's really good. I really like them. They would keep going over. So I think that it's really interesting because these star players do have people's attentions just like in normal sports, but because they move around, it influences what teams you like way more often.
with Overwatch, comparing Overwatch to like regular team sports, how there's like trading and swapping and off season and stuff. Overwatch League is divided into 4 stages before the grand finals, and there's like every team makes changes during those off weeks. Like stage 1 just finished for the 2nd season Overwatch League, and it's really interesting because like some teams have already like completely swapped their rosters. Some players that were new to the league decided they didn't want to be in the league anymore and like left. It's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's one thing, like you mentioned the pace of like, teams trading and teams switching and everything. That actually happened pretty early in the Halo scene for Halo 5. So the first world champions for it, Counter Logic Gaming, the entire team was bought out by Optic Gaming the very next season. So they were the same roster. Yeah. They just switched their brand up.
And then you'll see teams like, for example, the Shanghai Dragons in the first season of Overwatch League didn't win a single match. And so as a result, the entire team basically got dropped. I think only one of them is even in the league anymore. Actually, 2.
Weren't there a lot of like Cleveland Brown memes of them during that time as well?
I don't know. There's a lot of memes of them even now.
Well, but then again, like their following base was a pretty how should I say, devoted one.
Oh, for sure. I am an avid follower of them.
Because everyone was just like, please let them win one. That's all we want.
Yeah, like I was losing I have a ton of gear and merch for them, and like when they finally won a match, I was ecstatic. There were fans crying.
Oh yeah,
I can imagine.
It was like a huge deal all over.
It was
like,
a big deal.
That is a huge deal.
They went the entire first season. They went 0-40 in the first season.
Did they go 1-39 in the next season?
No, because the season's still going on.
Oh, okay.
They're 1-28 or something.
No, they actually have several wins this season.
So well, never mind.
Okay,
Game's over.
Good.
They're actually a decent team.
Good.
Yeah. They're actually in the top half of the league, I think, right now.
Ooh, that's great.
If there's a
okay, this actually brings up another point. So, what the team did is when they fully swapped their roster, they swapped to a roster of almost entirely Korean players.
So let me ask you this. So like people like there's obviously stereotypes amongst all sports. In which like players will or which coaches will go after certain athletes. So like in basketball, if you're looking for like a 7-foot tall point guard, or if you're 7 foot tall and a point guard in basketball, teams are going to be looking after you. Even like if you're just fresh out of high school, like there's going to be colleges all over you. Would you say there's a similar trend amongst how should I put this, like with nationalities esports? With esports? Like would you say?
I would say yes. At least in the Overwatch scene, Korean players are generally speaking regarded as, I don't want to say better, but they are far more common to see in the league than other nationalities, I would say.
And I would absolutely agree with you, because I would say the Korean teams, and I would say more or less the Asian teams as well, like they're better like in Overwatch, or maybe even like the MOBA scene and fighting games.
The MOBA scene for sure.
Like that's where they dominate.
Part of that I think is that I can speak for example in Korea, like esports are really big. They've already grown there far more than I think almost anywhere else in the world. They're a massive thing there.
Can I throw in something real quick? Since I've been watching since StarCraft 2 days, I've understood the importance of Korea with esports. And Korea, when it comes to StarCraft, League of Legends, these games, like they have dominated. And when they get into a pool, they dominate. It takes other people forever to start beating these Koreans. The one thing that Koreans don't have is, I would say, first-person shooters. That's the one thing where I
would agree. Yes.
But going back to it, if you've noticed recently, StarCraft 2 is no longer has a Korean champion. For the 20 years they've been around, they've always had a Korean champion up until now. Now it's this not even 18-year-old Finnish boy. He's from Finland, and he has beaten every single pro, and he is literally the best StarCraft player, hands down, right now. So it's taken 20 years to dethrone the Koreans in that sense.
League of Legends has been similar.
Koreans have been essential, I would say, in the esports community on an international level. I think that there's no other really big country that was into esports besides the US and Korea. Like, if you really think about it, like back as the early adopters, you don't see anyone in Europe. You don't see France really. You don't see England really. I mean, actually, England I'd say had a little bit, but not a lot.
I would argue that
Russia had actually a decent amount.
I would say the EU was dominating the Warcraft scene because Method is an EU organization, and they've been dominating for the last 6 years in the World First race. But other than that, they've been pretty quiet, as you say.
And then another thing on the not considering the international level, on a national level for Korea, their esports, like the way they view esports is just inherently different from what I've seen. They view it as a very, very like they view it as more popular than almost any other sport. Like if you are good at an esport and you're Korean, like you are a celebrity in Korea essentially.
Oh yeah.
Like you'll see players on billboards across the entire country.
That is crazy.
It's crazy how popular people are when they just because of how well known and widely known the esports industry is. They have gaming centers set up like around the country where people go and like compete in tournaments, and then like they work their way up. At least for the fighting games industry, they have tournaments around Korea, and only like the best of the Koreans basically get to go and compete internationally.
Oh yeah, like I could imagine there's some elaborate circuits that must be in place for stuff like that. So I traveled to Tokyo 2 years ago with my girlfriend, and one thing we were told to go to is check out the arcades. And I've never been like huge on arcades, and
they're crazy.
I went in there and they're freaking insane. They're so cool. But the best part was that if you go upstairs in all these arcades, it's where all the adults hang out, and all the adults are like our age, and they're sitting around playing like any sort of arena game, and by arena I mean like 2v2 or 1v1 games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching these guys play this Gundam game, this or that, but the fighting games, they had circuits, and I swear to you that you have to compete at all these different locations separately. You play in a circuit at your designated store, and like top 2 advance, and then every top 2 player has to go to the next set of stores to play, and then they advance.
Yeah,
they go to the next store, and then they have to go play and advance, and then until it becomes like a final tournament or something. And it's just, I can imagine for Korea how much more elaborate it may be because of how prevalent esports is.
It sounds like the Halo Microsoft Store tournaments they pull on, because they do the same thing where like to go to your local Microsoft store and do a 2v2 tournament, and then they eventually got put on to the a LAN stage where they compete in 2v2 tournament. And then the champions of those actually got asked to join the special big team battle tournament between Walshy and Golden Boy. So
Walshy.
Yeah, no. If you ever a Halo fan, go watch that big team battle tournament between Walshy and
it's really fun
and Golden Boy. It is some of the best esports I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, there's actually Overwatch is very similar. How like even when teams like aren't as good, there'll be times when you watch a game and you're like, this is really high level play, and this is what we watch it for.
Mm-hmm.
It's really entertaining. Those are moments where like you like get that tingling feeling down your spine. It's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
that sort of feeling I feel like is really a lot of why esports is a thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it is exciting.
And I think that's definitely something we can walk away from as we as the esports scene begins to grow, is that it is something that's enjoyable. It's something that we can all do very easily, and that's one thing where I think successful games is that they have these low skill entries, but have a massive skill cap, which attracts huge followings.
I feel like games like FPS games that have ranking systems are kind of similar to that idea. Just in general, like Overwatch, you have the lower ranks, and then people in the higher ranks are the people who play competitively, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And the lower ranks is like the entry level stuff. It's what people know. It's what people do. And then they take tips from watching the higher level plays and try to improve if they care enough to improve.
Oh yeah, and I think on that note, I will begin the wrap up of this podcast, because We do have people who do need to go soon, but other than that, this was a very passionate podcast. I thank you two for joining me today on this very lovely episode. I had a lot of fun doing it.
I thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a blast. I'm sorry that I missed the FPS one, but I was very glad that I could come in for the esports and streaming one.
I've been around for a few previous ones. I'll probably be around for whenever any more happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I got a very interesting one coming up here. I'll be sitting down with a guest to talk about microtransactions and the more business side of.
Please tell me you're not doing that with Double.
Oh, I am, and we're gonna have fun doing it.
Okay. I'm not gonna be there for that one. I'm not gonna be able to deal with Double talking about that.
We're gonna have fun doing it, trust me. But anyway, to everyone who is watching, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this podcast, give the rest of them down in the playlist below of the Elitist Gaming Podcast. Give these two beautiful men a follow on Twitch. I will have their channels linked in the description below. And as always, you can follow me as well on Twitch at twitch.tv/NoLimitsNick. And to wherever you are around the world, you have a nice day. All right, bye-bye. And done.